Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you my winter reading recommendations. So when it comes to winter reads, these are books that I kind of consider they're nice, good books to read when you're snuggling up by the fire with a nice blanket and cozy socks, and obviously a nice cup of tea, which I always do all the time. So yeah, these books I find either have take place when it's cold or have kind of a nice kind of wintry feel to them. So I kind of did my best to find books that take place in either cold environments or winter, and then a fantasy one to throw in because fantasy is always fun to read when it's gloomy outside. And so yeah, without further ado, let's get started. First book that I have is The Girl in the Ice by Bryznda, and this is the first book in the Erika series. And I read this book over back in February, and it follows a detective named Erika who is a homicide detective in London. And this book in particular takes place in cold winter, and basically the premise is this girl of a very wealthy family has been found in the ice, and it kind of leads to a series of murders that might be linked that no one really knows. So Erika is kind of on this case, and it makes it very difficult because the family is very prominent. The police don't really want to step on his toes and offend him. So this book was really good. It kept me on the edge of my seat, and it does a good job at kind of also showing the killer's perspective. There's a couple chapters that are intermingled into this that are told from the killer's perspective. And so this book, I didn't guess who it was until it was revealed, and I was shocked, but it was just really fun. So if you are looking for a new murder series to start, this is definitely one that I think you would really enjoy. And plus it takes place in really cold winter, so it's perfect for that. This is definitely a series that the next couple books I do have on my wish list for Christmas, so we'll see, because I definitely want to continue on with this series. Next, I then have The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton, and this book is kind of different because it is kind of all over the place and where it's at. It basically follows the story of a girl named Nell who on her 16th birthday finds out that her parents that she's loved all of her life are not her actual real parents. Instead, they found her basically on the dock of after this boat sailed from England to Australia. So this causes her world to shake, she has a complete loss of self and she's never the same after that. So flash forward basically 70 years where Nell is on her deathbed, and her granddaughter finds out about this. So after Nell passes away, she goes and searches for Nell's family. So the only thing that she knows about it is basically the suitcase that Nell had with her when she was little, and it had a book of fairy tales in it from this author. We don't know how this author ties into Nell's past, we just know that it is important. So the granddaughter goes and searches for that, and while this is all happening, we kind of get a dual storyline back in early, I want to say 1900s. It follows a girl named Eliza, who is a young girl whose family, her mother ran away from her wealthy family and she was told never to go back there. But when her mother passes away and her brother passes away, her family kind of collects her up again, and they kind of bring her back to this castle. For this, we're on kind of the edge of Cornwall, with the waves and all that. So I think this one is a really good book to snuggle up with. It's really gripping, and it kind of shows kind of life on the English coast and Cornwall, just the weather and that. So I think this one is a really good atmospheric winter read and just really fun. I read this over the summer, but I feel it's the perfect book to read during the winter. It's such a gripping novel, and I read the last 300 pages in one sitting because I was I need to know how this ends. So I think this is the perfect winter read when the weather is not fun outside and you can just read all day. Next, I then have The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon, and I read this a couple years ago, and it's really creepy. It takes place in Vermont, and basically the premise is this family has moved into this house that has a history of basically brutal murder has taken place. The daughter, this is in I want to say late 1800s, where the daughter went missing and the mother was murdered, and basically the woods have been basically told that they have the winter people, which are people who are dead but haven't passed on, that kind of wander the woods, and there's this dark forest that no one really knows about. So when this girl in present day, her mother goes missing, they kind of uncover the diary of the woman who previously lived there, and it's really creepy. It takes place in the dead of winter, and it's like really creepy, and I think this is a really good book to read just all snuggled up because it is creepy and it takes place in winter, and it's just has that total creepy winter atmosphere, and like Vermont in the woods, and really creepy. There's like one character, really creepy just how she's described, and I could like picture her perfectly, and it freaks me out just to think about it. But this is like, I think would be a really fun winter read. Next, this one's a bit of a curveball, but it is The Queen of the Tearling by Erika Johansen. It's probably one of my favorite fantasy series of all time, and it follows a girl named Kelsey who on her 18th birthday must go back and reclaim her throne from her uncle. And basically the Tearling takes place in the future, but it is a regress society. So they, in terms of technology, they're kind of set back into like kind of the 1800s in terms of technology and all that. It's really interesting. It's a very political book, which I really like. It does kind of shed light on kind of separating religion from politics and ruling. And Kelsey is such a complex character. I know she's very polarized here on BookTube, but I think she's really amazing. She's very real, and I think that's why a lot of people don't really like her. She's not like perfect in any way, and she has flaws. But it's just a really good book, and I think this one is like for a deep fantasy. I think this one is perfect to read in the winter time just because it's so dark, and then like with the weather just being kind of meh. Winter is my favorite time of year though, but like sometimes in like February where it's just slushed on the ground and it's just gray, like I think this is a perfect fantasy book to read when the weather is just not nice. And lastly, this is one that takes place during like the freezing winter in January, and it is Mean Streak by Sandra Brown. This is a book that I read this year that I really loved, and it basically follows a doctor who is training for a marathon. So she like goes for the weekend to train in the Smoky Mountains and in North Carolina. And she wakes up in this stranger's cottage in the middle of a snowstorm with a bump on her head, and she doesn't remember how she got there. The stranger won't hurt her, hasn't hurt her or anything, she doesn't know, we don't know, but basically he won't tell her her name, and there's some really sketchy neighbors going on, and she's trying to figure out who basically bashed a stone into her head and all that. It's really interesting. It does take place in winter too, and like blizzards and all that, so I think this book was really good. It keeps you on the edge of your toes, so I think it'll just be a fun winter read if you're looking for something really quick pace, and all the chapters end on cliffhangers, so you're gonna just want to keep on reading. So that's it guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what some of your winter reading recommendations are. And so yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye guys!